Now to our deep dive into a new flu strain that health experts warn could make for a nasty flu season. The new strain is called Subclade K, and it's already spread overseas. Japan, they've already declared an influenza epidemic, and the UK flu season started a month earlier than usual.
Now to the rise in flu cases in our area, which is sparking concern. Experts say early signs point to a harsh flu season in the U.S. once again this year.
I do want to talk about the H3N2 flu virus right now. The strain, it is expected to cause more severe symptoms. We know infection rates already rising in 31 states.
Connecticut has now confirmed its first death of the flu season.
What's up, regular offenders? It is ArDee once again with more unwatchable content, and in today's video that nobody is going to watch, we're going to be looking into a developing story regarding a new variant flu strain that goes by the name of Subclade K that has been making the headlines over the last week or so. Now, some of you folks watching may be able to cast your minds back to around about November of 2019 when we first started to hear stories of a mysterious virus coming out of the Wuhan region of China, and I think we all know how that story ended. So this recent development and new strain variant of the flu that is doing the rounds has already begun to cause some alarm in some parts of the world, and has even been attributed to causing 1 or 2 deaths within the United States of America. So are we about to brace ourselves for yet another global pandemic, more lockdowns, social distances, all of the good stuff that was included within 2020 that sort of got extremely tedious, but somehow, whether or not you believe the story of COVID-19, or if you did believe the story of COVID-19, one way or another, the pandemic affected us all, and really and truly the world has never quite been the same again. So are we about to brace ourselves for a second wave of social distancing, masking up, and new vaccines? Time will only tell. Now, I'm no medical expert, and I'm not here to tell you to or not to get any medical assistance or vaccines regarding any variant flu strains. That is entirely up to you, and remember, it is your body, your choice. It doesn't matter if you decide to or decide not to get any recommended medications that may prevent the spread of a new developing virus. As I said, it's your body, it's your choice. Just because you may choose to or may not choose to doesn't make you wrong or right, and vice versa. So we've got a couple of videos. Actually, we've got more videos than articles to get through today, although this isn't going to be a long one. There's only a few short news clips that I have compiled regarding this new flu variant Subclade K, and we're going to look at 1 or 2 articles. So without any further ado, let's head over right now to our first article of the day. So first up today, we are going to start out with an article from the University of Minnesota, which first was published on the 12th of November 2025, just a couple of weeks ago now, and it reads, with an absent CDC and a mismatched Subclade K flu strain, experts face an upcoming season with uncertainty. Earlier this month, a group of Canadian researchers published an early influenza data for the 2025-2026 season, issuing a warning. There has been an observed mismatch with the seasonal influenza vaccine strain and what is emerging as the dominant flu strain this season, H3N2, otherwise known as Subclade K. And when they have sort of catchy names that are sort of easy to remember, like Subclade K, it sort of does make you wonder if we are not going to hear the last of it in the months to come. Hopefully that isn't the case. We're not trying to spread doom and gloom here. We're just trying to raise a little bit of awareness and inform folks of some articles recently published regarding this latest flu strain for entertainment and informative purposes. But based on early reports from Japan and the United Kingdom, the Canadian researchers wanted to publish these data to encourage enhanced surveillance in North America this season, especially given the tumultuous situation in the United States. This is not the time to be flying blind into the respiratory virus season, says an MD with a name I cannot pronounce and will not even begin to butcher. But the epidemiology led for influenza and emerging respiratory pathogens at the British Columbia Centre for Disease Control told that the doctor we can't name was the senior author of the paper, which published in the Journal of Association of Medical Microbiology and Infectious Disease. A lot of words that it never really told us anything at all. But we look to the United States to see what is circulating because it drives what's going on in North America, she said. H3N2 shows early dominance in the United Kingdom and in Japan. The United States Centers for Disease Control has not posted the standard weekly respiratory illness surveillance data since September 26, and it is unknown when or if national surveillance in the country will resume. The doctor with the unpronounceable name and her colleagues said sequencing information gleaned from Northern Hemisphere 2024-25 influenza season showed that influenza and mutations among Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere H3N2 variants relative to the 2024-25 Subclade J and updated 2025-26 Subclade J.2 vaccine reference strains, which were used to formulate the current vaccine H3N2 and H1N1, are both influenza strains. Now, what I'm guessing is this new Subclade K mutant strain is immune to the latest vaccine. Surprise, surprise. Although many people are saying that the vaccine that is available for influenza will protect you a little bit from this Subclade K, which emerged at the tail end of Southern Hemispheres after the WHO, World Health Organization, made the choice of the strain, which is subclass J2, she said. Now that reads very interesting to me after the WHO decided on the choice, or rather they made the choice of the strains. It's like, maybe they were presented with, okay, we've got this Subclade K, we've got Super Duper 45, we've got, Ironico 46 strains, but we recommend the subclass World Health Organization that has some particularly nasty symptoms. You might want to roll with that one this year. That is just a hypothetical scenario of how the choice could have been made as to what strain, which is a subclass J2. But H1N1 predominated the flu season this year in the Southern Hemisphere, with the H3N2 Subclade K taken off only at the end. But early data from the United Kingdom and Japan show that the H3N2 subclade was represented in 90% of flu samples. A drift, not a shift. It's too early to tell what this will mean for the United States, but the doctor with the unpronounceable name said that she and her colleagues do not believe this strain of H3N2 will lead to a pandemic. Could they be famous famous last words? Let's wait and see. But this is a major drift, not a shift, she said. This is the same subtype we had circulating in human population since 1968, but each season the viruses evolves to evade immunity. Those crafty viruses evading immunity. And some seasons it's relatively more successful than others. She also said she was encouraged because the mutation sites would not affect how well antiviral drugs work, and the mutations are not associated with increased virulence of severity. But if vaccine efficiency is significantly reduced, more flu cases should be expected, and surveillance is crucial to determine how much protection flu vaccines are offering. So it does seem to be, at the very least, a period of influenza surveillance could well be on the cards for the United States of America. And I believe it is already being surveyed in other nations around the world. But Joshua Petrie, who is an associate research journalist at Wisconsin's Marshfield Clinic Research Institute Center for Clinical Epidemiology and Population Health, said he's not seeing a lot of influenza activity yet. The flu he and his colleagues have seen is primarily H1N1, but he expects H3N2 will be the dominant strain this year. He said most states will collect surveillance data throughout the season, but there's uncertainty given the lack of national surveillance provided by the CDC. The influenza season can take off quickly, and it might sneak up on us. If you weren't watching what is happening nationally, he said. CDC also performs the more advanced characterization of circulating influenza viruses in terms of their genetics and how they interact with our existing immunity. These data are used to select viruses that will be represented in the next year's vaccine. But for now, the experts have to wait, the doctor with the unpronounceable name said, and it could be that influenza B dominates instead of H3N2, though that is unlikely. In general, said Petrie, H3N2 dominant seasons pack a bigger punch with lower effectiveness of the vaccine and more severe illnesses in older adults than H1N1 dominant years. Petrie said getting the flu vaccine is still important, even if there is a significant mismatch. Even in the seasons when vaccine effectiveness is lower, the vaccine still provides some protection and is the best thing you can do to reduce your risk of severe illnesses, he said. And who am I to argue he is, after all, a medical professional? But the United Kingdom preprint shows them encouraging signs, and data from the United Kingdom's Health Security Agency on early influenza virus characterization and vaccine effectiveness suggests that the 2025-26 vaccine is currently 70 to 75% effective at preventing hospital attendance in children aged 2 to 17 years and 30 to 40% effective in adults. So less than 50% effective in adults there. But the observed early VE is similar to end of season VE estimates typically seen in adults in recent years. In the United Kingdom, Europe and Canada, the authors wrote, our results are encouraging, though it is important to note that these observations are from a period very soon after vaccination when there has been no warming in effectiveness. The strong protection, especially among children, is encouraging after the UK authors described reduced reactivity of Subclade K with post-infection ferret antisria and described an early and sharp rise in UK flu cases. Nevertheless, vaccine effectiveness against hospital attendance and admission in the early season currently remains within a typical range of 70 to 75% in children and 30 to 40% in adults, the authors added. And that is it for that article, which, as I said, come out just a couple of weeks ago. And we are going to look at another one from a couple of weeks ago right now. Right, so our second article from Gavi.org, Vaccines Work website, starts out by saying everything you need to know about Subclade K flu and vaccine protection against it. And this was published 14th of November 2025, again, just a couple of weeks ago. As a new branch of H3N2 influenza gains ground, we explore what it means for this season's flu vaccine. A new, fast-growing twig has appeared on influenza's ever-branching family tree, genetically different enough to have set scientists on alert. Known as H3N2 Subclade K, it's already dominating influenza samples in places like the United Kingdom, but it has drifted far enough from the vaccine strain to matter, ? And how well will seasonal flu vaccines stand up against it? Influenza viruses are constantly evolving, which is why the World Health Organization closely monitors which viruses have been circulating, and it makes recommendations about which strains to include in each year's seasonal flu vaccine. To keep up with them, the key issue is a small genetic changes to the virus's surface proteins, particularly hemagglutinin, which is the H, the protein that vaccines target in influenza. H3N2 is a well-established human seasonal flu virus that has circulated for decades, although, like all influenza A viruses, it originally came from a bird flu virus and not a bat. It was one of the main viruses circulating during last year's winter flu season in the Northern Hemisphere alongside H1N1 and influenza B. Because of that, it is one of the viruses included in this year's seasonal flu vaccine. Fancy that. Importantly, whatever strains do circulate here this winter, we can be confident that the vaccine will help to protect the most vulnerable from developing serious illnesses and being hospitalized. We strongly encourage all those eligible to get vaccinated against flu as soon as possible. It remains our best defense against serious illness, is a quote from Dr. Jamie Lopez Bernal, a consultant for immunization at UKHS. A medical professional, unlike myself. But the issue is that although still part of the H3N2 family, the current variant known as Subclade K has evolved enough mutations to differentiate it from the reference strain, Subclade J, that was chosen for this season's vaccine back in February. The current circulating influenza A, in brackets H3N2 virus, acquired 7 new mutations over the summer, which means the virus is quite different to the H3N2 strain included in this year's vaccine, said Dr. Antonio Ho, who is a clinical senior lecturer and consultant in infectious diseases at the University of Glasgow in the United Kingdom. It also means that the virus could have changed sufficiently to escape the immunity that has built up from previous infections and in vaccinations. How quickly is it spreading? Subclade K is thought to have emerged at the tail end of the Southern Hemisphere's flu season. Where have we heard that before? Was it possibly in the previous article? So you can see a pattern here of people reading from the same script that could possibly been provided them from the WHO. Well, that is just speculation and exploring avenues of alternative possibilities. But early data from the UK and Japan suggest that it is already represented in most flu samples. Subclade K has also been detected in North America, although it is unclear what proportion of samples it currently accounts for there. In the United Kingdom, the flu season began around 5 weeks earlier than usual, with increases first seen in teenagers and young adults, followed by younger children. Interesting to know. But according to the United Kingdom Health Security Agency, almost all recent cases, 98% in brackets, have been influenza A, and among those subtyped, around 84% are H3N2, and of course around 87% are Subclade K. Early starts to the flu season have also been observed in parts of the European Union, although overall cases numbers remain relatively low. While most EU cases are H3N2, limited sequences means it is still unclear what proportion belongs to Subclade K. But according to Professor Adam Finn at the University of Bristol, United Kingdom, an early start to the flu season could suggest that the strain or strains in circulating are finding it easier than usual to spread about, meaning they're doing so before the colder weather conditions, and that is usually a signal and drive the onset of the season. An important possible explanation for this could be that there is less immunity than usual in the population controlling the spread of flu viruses, he said. Does it cause more serious disease? But compared to H1N1, H3N2 generally tends to cause a more severe illness, particularly in older adults. For example, in 2022-23 season, when H3N2 was the dominant virus, there were 16,000 influenza-associated deaths in the United Kingdom compared to only 8,000 last winter, said Ho. An early flu season also means that fewer vulnerable members of the population may have received their flu vaccine in time, leaving them less protected. And that concludes that particular article from a couple of weeks ago on the new mutant flu virus, Subclade K. So let's go over to a couple of videos to break up the articles, and once the videos are done, I'll be back with some more articles that are a little bit more recent than a couple of weeks ago.
Cool weather will keep many people indoors this week, and with family gatherings as we approach the holiday, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention are reminding people to stay safe as we are in flu season.
Action News South Valley reporter Cassandra Gutierrez spoke with local doctors about the trends of a new virus variant. Cassandra.
Down Graciela, doctors say this new flu variant appears to have more severe symptoms than variants we've seen in the past. They say they've also noticed an uptick in hospitalizations. The holidays and flu season are upon us, and medical professionals are warning people of a new version of the virus.
Subclade K is a variant of the common flu strain that we're typically seeing this year. It's known to be a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more infectious, but it has the same effect and the same symptoms as the regular flu strains.
Symptoms include fever, aches, and muscle pains. You can also have a runny nose, cough, sore throat, and headaches, but symptoms are typically more severe.
And have already shown an increase in hospitalization. So a lot of particularly vulnerable populations, such as children under the age of 5 and the elderly, do seem to be hospitalized at higher rates even compared to last year, which was a very severe year.
Well, it's just taking hold here. This new flu variant has already run rampant overseas.
In other countries, it has already been declared like an epidemic. Here in the US, we still don't know how is it going to present. It may cause some similar issues.
Doctors say the current flu shot does offer some protection. The key is prevention, such as washing your hands and staying away from others if you feel sick. It's especially important to keep an eye on vulnerable populations, especially children under 5, who are at higher risk of dehydration.
I always encourage my parents to trust their parental instincts. If your child is not doing well, there's nothing wrong with bringing them in to get checked out.
Also, if over-the-counter medications are not working, it's important to know when to seek medical help.
Debilitating symptoms, difficulty feeding, refuse of intake of liquids, or decreased urinary output, it may be that there is something more serious going on, such as a pneumonia or other complication for influenza, and they need to be seen right away.
Respiratory symptoms like difficulty breathing and coughing are also other reasons that people may need to seek medical attention. Again, doctors remind people that prevention is key, so you want to make sure you are washing your hands as often as needed. Live in Visalia, I'm Cassandra Gutierrez, ABC 30 Action News.
Warning from global health experts.
Yeah, that's right. Flu season is ramping up, and U.S. officials are issuing a new warning as a potentially severe strain is breaking out worldwide. NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar is here with what we need to know. Dr.
Good morning,
Azar.
guys.
Oh,
I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. But I always am the Grim Reaper.
No, you're not.
Okay.
Let's start with this latest warning. Flu season's underway. Why are these health experts so worried right now?
Getting worried right now. So I think for context, we are always following 2 influenza A strains and 1 influenza B strain. Those are the 3 actually that are covered by this year's vaccine. Okay. Typically, we see a lot of what's called H1N1 circulating. That's what circulated in the Southern Hemisphere. But at the very end of the Southern Hemisphere's flu season, there was an uptick in this particular strain called H3N2. Generally, H3N2 usually means a little bit of a harder flu season. Now, what's important about this is that I just said, and the vaccine does cover H3N2, but guess what H3N2 did? Because it's a very savvy influenza virus, it acquired 7 new mutations that will likely make it able to evade immunity, i.e. will evade some of the protection from this year's vaccine. Now, the other thing is that we're flying a little bit blind because of our government shutdown, which thankfully is now over, but we haven't had a real good assessment from the CDC since the end of September in terms of flu activity. We don't anticipate getting that, what we call the flu view, for another couple of weeks from CDC. So again, our communication from them, it hasn't been centralized, so we don't exactly know what's going on here in this country. If you get a swab and you're positive for A, we don't know right now at the moment if you're H1N1 or H3N2.
So if you've been holding off on getting the flu shot, is that a good thing? Will this flu shot help you with the new stuff?
So I want to be very clear about this because a lot of people hear, oh, it's not a good match this season, I'm not going to get the flu shot. That is not the right interpretation of what we are saying. In fact, some protection, even though it's not perfect, is better than none at all. And I always want to remind people, remember what the flu shot is meant to do. We know it doesn't protect everyone from getting sick from the flu. Right. What it does protect from is severe illness, hospitalization, and death. And if I may, I always make a plug for children. Again, last year, 90% of the children who died from flu were not fully vaccinated. And sadly, half of the children who died were perfectly healthy. Wow. Okay, so even if you're going to say, you know what, for me, I'm not going to do it, I don't want people feeling the same way about their kids. Yeah.
Thank you,
Good advice.
You are welcome.
Thank you so much.
We now find ourselves at everydayhealth.com and an article that is from a week ago. So we are bringing you up to date with these articles, is sort of catching up a little bit as this story as it has unfolded. And this is an article about infectious diseases, cold and flu. And it starts out with saying a surprise flu mutation puts the United States on high alert. An unexpected strain of the influenza virus is already driving up case counts abroad and is heading for the United States. Key takeaways that an unexpected strain of influenza A H3N2 called Subclade K is driving up case counts in Canada, England and Japan. Flu seasons are unpredictable, but this rapid rapidly spreading mutation increases the odds that the United States will face a challenging winter. The 2025-2026 flu vaccine is not an ideal match for Subclade K, but it should still offer powerful protection against severe illnesses. But that the United States heads into flu season, an unexpected influenza strain threatens to make the coming months especially hard. As we've already established, Canada, United Kingdom and Japan have already reported an uptick in flu cases, with early data suggesting that Subclade K is leading the charge in those cases. And as we already know, it is a variant of influenza H3N2. And it is fueling the spread, according to the Global Center for Health Security, not the World Health Organization. But this could spell trouble for the US if Subclade K comes here. Trouble abroad may seem trouble ahead for the United States. A study published this month by the BMJ predicted that the 2025-2026 flu season in the United Kingdom, which got off to an early start, could be one of the worst ever. The dominant H3N2 influenza strain mutated 7 times, as we've already heard twice in his article. So remember, guys, it does seem to be that they are all reading from the same script, although I would imagine that a bunch of medical professionals would eventually come to the same conclusion in their research, because obviously you can't change the end results. But in Japan, the article continues to say health officials have declared the flu as an epidemic. So 1 week later, already in Japan, it has advanced to the stages that require it to be declared an epidemic. And remember, guys, it was in the region of Wuhan that it was first declared an epidemic before it went global. And back to this, so it has been declared as an epidemic as an uncommonly high number of cases have been reported for this time of year in Japan. Because influenza viruses don't need a passport, I think it's only a matter of time before this strain shows up in the United States, says William Schaffner, MD, an infectious disease specialist and a professor of preventative medicine and health policy at the Vanderbilt University School of Medicine in Nashville, Tennessee. It may even be here right now, he said. Remember, this was a week ago, but because of the government's recent shutdown, we haven't heard much information about the flu for now. And they haven't heard anything for some weeks from the CDC, the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention. Even though these signs point to a potential bad flu season, Dr. Schaffner, once again, like his peers, is urging the public not to panic, and we'll have to see how this plays out. It's a little bit too early to tell, he says. Flu is fickle. It is almost always defies predictions in one way or another. And as the CDC gets back up to speed in the days ahead, more data regarding flu trends in the United States should become available, according to Schaffner. Initial post-government shutdown information has shown low influenza activity in the United States, but it has begun to match up. A mismatched vaccine may leave Americans more vulnerable. Recently, Canadian research published a paper warning that this year's flu vaccine formula is a mismatch, and for what appears to be the leading strain, Subclade K, because this year's shot was not designed to mainly target Subclade K, the variant may better elude the vaccine protection, driving infection rates up. Vaccine formulas for the Northern Hemisphere are updated each year based on variants that circulated during the flu season that just passed. And a lot of this does repeat itself, so I'm not going to go and continue to read any more of this, and let's get down to the bottom here a little bit here and skip past some of those previous chapters. The vaccination still provides significant protection, even though this year's flu vaccine may be somewhat of a mismatch for Subclade K. Infectious disease experts expect it to substantially heighten defenses against infection and especially help prevent severe illnesses, hospitalizations, and deaths. There are different strains of influenza every year, so unfortunately we don't have a universal vaccine. How unfortunate is that? That you take only once, said Aram Glatt, MD, who is a chief of infectious diseases at Mount Sinai South Nassau Hospital in Oceanside, New York, and he is a spokesman for the Infectious Disease Society of America. The current vaccine is based on what we went on in the Southern Hemisphere in their winter to guess what will be going on here in the Northern Hemisphere, so it's not a perfect game. There's always matches and mismatches, he said, but those who are vaccinated should be more protected against this particular strain, Subclade K, and even if they do get the flu, they are far more likely to have milder episode than if they didn't get the vaccine. Preliminary research in the United Kingdom bears this out, indicating that vaccine effectiveness against hospitalization at this point in the early season is within typical range of 70 to 75% in children, 30 to 40% in adults. We've heard that before. The CDC recommends annual flu vaccination for everyone ages 6 months and older, and stresses that the vaccination is especially important for groups who are more vulnerable to severe illnesses, including older adults, pregnant individuals, pregnant women, pregnant women, people with chronic medical conditions, and those with weakened immune system, as well as young children. Nearly 9 out of 10 children who died from the flu in 2024-25 were not fully vaccinated. Even people with strong immune systems can benefit from the vaccine. This virus can make even very healthy people very sick, says Schaffner. We emphasize that all people get vaccinated, not just the most vulnerable, but also their caregivers and their family members. Nobody wants to be a dreaded spreader. Are you a dreaded spreader? Dreaded spreader. Dreaded spreader. That's pretty catchy as well, isn't it? Anyway, with peak flu season arriving in January or February, it's not too late to get your shot, but Schaffner urges people, don't delay it. The immune system takes about 10 days to 2 weeks to fully activate its protection against the virus. Was this article helpful? Let me know in the comments. So let's move on to another article from a little bit recenter than a week ago. We are now at thehill.com from an article released only 3 days ago. And regarding healthcare, the title of the article reads, Why Subclade K Could Make for a Nasty Flu Season. And this is by Lee Ann Anderson. A new strain of the flu called Subclade K could make for a particularly nasty flu season across the country, according to public health experts. The strain already caused Japan to declare an influenza epidemic. The United Kingdom's flu season started a month earlier than usual, and a trend that is also playing out across the Atlantic. United States flu cases have already reached numbers typically seen in December, said Cameron Wolfe, a professor of medicine and infectious disease, and he's a specialist at Duke University. We're here in mid-November seeing the beginning of an uptick that is actually mirrored by what we've seen overseas, Wolf says. It's not necessarily showing any signs of being more severe. I think it does look as though it has sort of escaped some of our prior immunity, and therefore we'd expect there to be more cases. And maybe that is why we're seeing them more early in the season than we would usually see. Subclade K is a variant of H3N2, as we should all know by now, and which is dominated past flu seasons and co-circulated with a H1N1 last year. And the H3N2 variants tend to cause more severe symptoms like a high fever, fatigue, severe body aches, in comparison with H1N1 variants, which tend to be more mild, according to the Doctors Diagnostic Center. Hospitalizations for the flu during 2024-2025 flu season were the highest they've been since 2010, according to the Centers for Disease Control. Last year's flu season killed 280 children, the highest number for pediatric deaths since the CDC began tracking them. Causing them speculation, alternative avenues of possibility. But Wolf said, back to the article, that the trend may continue this year. Does an earlier flu season translate to more hospitalizations? And I think the answer is sadly, inevitably, yes. We are going to have to grapple with that on the front, he added. The populations most vulnerable to the flu: pregnant women, small children, and the elderly, and those with prior health conditions. The Vaccine Alliance warned that Subclade K is worrying because of the mutations that occurred since the summer when researchers developed the flu vaccine for this season, using a variant called Subclade J2. But it also means that the virus could have changed sufficiently to escape the immunity. We've heard that before. And has it built up from previous infections and vaccinations, said Dr. Tonia Ho, a clinical senior lecturer and consultant that we already heard from at Glasgow, University of Glasgow in the United Kingdom. On top of a new strain, Americans aren't getting vaccinations as much as they were in previous years, though the latest CDC data on flu vaccinations is from April. Children are at increased risk of severe flu, particularly those under 5, and it's most important for those under 2, said Andrew Pavia, a professor and pediatric infectious disease expert at the University of Utah. The thing that really concerns me is the decreasing rates of influenza vaccination, particularly among young children. William Schaffner, a doctor who teaches infectious disease at Vanderbilt University, said one cause of this trend could be the growing number of people who don't trust public health experts, with Health and Human Services Secretaries Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a longtime vaccine skeptic, now leading federal health agencies. The kind of vaccine disparaging information that we have been receiving from Washington, particularly over the last year, has been confusing, discouraging, and has contributed to a lack of trust in public health, he said. We don't claim the vaccine to be perfect. It's not, but it works better at keeping you out of hospital, the intensive care unit, and helping keep you out of the cemetery. Early reports from the UK show that this year's vaccine still provides some protection against the new variant, but they expect that the current vaccine will keep being effective and will maintain effectiveness against the virus that circulates every year. Jarbus Barbosa, that's a strange name if I've ever heard one, although I have heard some strange names. And he is the director, or she is the director of Pan American Health Organization, and they said that to The Hill. And I believe that is the end of the article. So let's break things up with another couple of videos before coming back with some even more recent articles from in the last couple of days and even within the last few hours.
Now to the rise in flu cases in our area, which is sparking concern. Experts say early signs point to a harsh flu season in the U.S. once again this year. Doctors around the globe are keeping their eye on a new strain that popped up, causing unprecedented outbreaks overseas. Action News reporter Trish Hartman talked to health leaders in South Jersey with what they're seeing so far this season.
Here in New Jersey, cases of the flu are starting to rise, according to the New Jersey Department of Health, and hospitalizations are beginning to increase for flu, COVID, and RSV. Plus, experts are tracking a new subvariant of the flu that could impact this year's flu season. Crystal Wells is doing everything she can not to get sick this year.
And it's in your muscle, just use a cold compress, 10 minutes.
And that includes getting her flu shot.
I don't want to be in big crowds and definitely don't want to catch anything from anybody else.
Pharmacist Sharon Mayer gives out hundreds of flu shots each season here at Paramount Drug in Riverside, though over the past few years, she's seen fewer and fewer patients coming in for the shot.
When they are coming in, their concerns seem to have been COVID more than flu. And sometimes we got them back here for the flu, and sometimes we didn't.
Right now, CDC data shows flu cases are low here at the beginning of the season. But last year was a high-severity flu season with the highest hospitalization rate since 2010 into 2011. This year, there's a new subvariant, Subclade K, that's causing spikes in other countries.
The United Kingdom and Japan have seen an earlier start to their flu seasons than is typical or normal for them.
Infectious disease specialist Dr. Judith O'Donnell says while this new variant isn't included in this year's flu shot, she says it's a mutation of influenza A and the shot will still be helpful.
Even if it's not a perfect match to the vaccine strain, the vaccines we know provide protective immunity, in particular immunity and protection from severe infection that would require like hospitalization or ICU stays.
And with Thanksgiving coming up next week, Dr. O'Donnell advises get your flu shot now if you haven't already. Family gatherings are prime environments to spread illness along with holiday cheer. Reporting in Riverside, New Jersey, Trish Hartman, Channel 6, Action News.
I do want to talk about the H3N2 flu virus right now. The strain, it is expected to cause more severe symptoms. We know infection rates already rising in 31 states. Is the flu vaccine this year effective against this strain?
Right. So the answer is we really have to wait and see. But I think what's happened is over the course of the past few months, we have seen this H3N2, what we call the K type. It's gone from Japan to the United Kingdom and now Canada. We're expecting it here in the United States, and it has 7 new mutations. Unfortunately, because the way vaccine technology is, we have to make our vaccine about 6 to 9 months before the flu season. So we weren't able to capture this strain. Now, the good news is that studies that have been conducted in the United Kingdom show that the vaccine does protect against severe illness. It looks like it may decrease pediatric or children hospitalization by about 70%, and in adults it may be 30 to 40%. That may not be as good as we expect in other years. Now, again, it's important to emphasize that the flu vaccine is not a great vaccine at protecting against infection. And that's the reason why many of us get the flu vaccine and we still get the flu. But the reason it's still important to get it, especially if you're a vulnerable child or an adult, if you're immunocompromised, the CDC does recommend that all children over 6 months of age and all adults do receive this once a year, is because it's likely to still reduce severe illness.
Okay, Dr. Todd Ellerin, really appreciate you coming on tonight. Thank you so much.
Good to be with you today.
Connecticut has now confirmed its first death of the flu season. Good evening and thanks for joining us for the news here at 6. I'm Mark Sidney.
Hi, everybody. I'm Stephanie Simone. It was a person in their 80s from Hartford County who died last month. And it comes as there is a new, more aggressive strain of the flu.
Yeah, tonight your reporter Dylan Fearon is joining us live in the studio as this new strain is causing severe outbreaks around the world. Dylan?
Mark, Stephanie, there are also cases right now in the U.S., including Connecticut. The new strain is called Subclade K. Doctors are concerned it could lead to a more severe flu season. They're also worried about vaccine hesitancy. Steve Fleischman is getting ready to shop at Big Y in Rocky Hill. The flu shot isn't on his shopping list.
So how many people get the flu shot and still get the flu? So why should I put that in me that's not going to help me anyway?
Linda Adamides, preparing to host Thanksgiving, won't be getting hers either.
I don't do vaccines. I've done the flu shot in the past and not felt well at all afterwards, and I feel like I get the flu when I get the flu shot.
Dr. Husnain Kermali is the chief medical officer at St. Mary's Hospital in Waterbury. He believes there's noticeable vaccine hesitancy around the country.
We've got truly decades of research behind the vaccines that are being administered and multiple safety studies that are showing that they are safe.
I'm 77 years old. I've never gotten a flu shot in my life.
I was going to say,
Watch, I'll get the flu now.
Connecticut confirmed the state's first flu death of the season. A person in their 80s from Hartford County died last month. The new strain, Subclade K, is more aggressive than the common flu and may evade the current vaccine.
Where the vaccine was being prepared against that strain as we were noticing it coming through. Unfortunately, as viruses do, it changed a little bit through the summertime and became a little bit more aggressive in how it transmits between people.
The CDC says more than 145 million people received a flu shot in the U.S. last year. That includes Elliot Gershman.
I got it October 23rd. Just habit. I've always had it. I got COVID shot and flu shot around the same time.
Now, doctors say the symptoms of the new strain are very similar to the common flu: fever, chills, body aches, fatigue. They want you to test if you have symptoms, wash your hands, and please cover coughs and sneezes. I'm your reporter, Dylan Fear, in Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
Next up, we have an article from iflscience.com that was published 2 days ago at time of recording, and it reads, heard about Subclade K? Flu, we explore what it is and whether you should worry. And this flu season may not pan out in quite the way experts predicted. And this is from Laura Simmons, health and medicine editor, and she happens to hold a master's in experimental neuroscience and a bachelor's in biology from Imperial College London. Well, look at her, la-di-da. Her areas of expertise include health, medicine, psychology, and neuroscience. So let's go down a little bit too far. Seasonal flu is a bit of a guessing game, a very scientific, high-stakes guessing game, but still, we can never know for sure exactly how a flu season will play out. So scientists make predictions based on the season in the opposite hemisphere of the globe as we use their best guesses of which virus strain will proliferate when formulating vaccines. This season was forecast to be slightly less severe than the brutal one of 2024-25, which saw among its grim milestones the most pediatric deaths in a non-pandemic year since 2004, but an emergent flu strain could put paid to any optimism experts might have been feeling, and it is called Subclade K. Subclade K, as we already know, is a variant of H3N2 influenza, which is a familiar seasonal scourge for humanity. Last year it was co-circulating with H1N1, and it was thought to be the major driver behind the large number of more severe infections that were recorded. As reported by Vaccines Work, an initiative of Gavi, we just saw that report, the Vaccine Alliance, early indications seem to suggest that 2025-26 season would be more moderate than last year's one, reason being that it is uncommon to have two severe flu seasons back to back. But moreover, data from the southern hemisphere suggested that vaccines roughly halved outpatient visits and hospitalizations, indicating that the vaccines were a decent match to this year's viruses and could have a strong impact on disease burden if people actually go and get vaccinated. Underscored, that is sponsored content, and that is the end of that article. So let's come and look at an article from within the last day and within the last few hours. Okay, so this article from yesterday, November 25th, 2025, at time of recording, is from the New York Post, and it reads, Subclade clay, flu strain that's causing spikes in the United Kingdom and Canada and led Japan to declare an epidemic. And this is by Rachel Slacks. There's a new kid on the block this cold and flu season, and it could prove worse than your average winter sniffles. The flu strain known as Subclade clay is ringing alarm bells due to its potential severity and resistance to current vaccine, public health experts warn. The strain is rapidly spreading internationally, with cases rising across the United Kingdom and Canada, and Japan declared a nationwide influenza epidemic. Unusually early reporting over 6,000 cases and several hospitalizations of children. And that's it. Or is there a chance to read more? Did I miss a click? Yeah, there we go. Sorry, that was what I was looking for. A variant of the H3N2 influenza, as we know, is a virus that dominates flu seasons. Subclade K is already responsible for over half of US flu cases as of November 15th, according to the CDC. Compared to H1N1 viruses, respiratory infections known as swine flu, H3N2 viruses are often associated with more severe symptoms. And again, that was another very, very short and sweet one. No, it isn't. There's even more. These sort of the gaps are a little bit misleading. But these conclude higher fever, fatigue, severe body aches, sore throat, chills, runny or congested nose, and possible vomiting or diarrhea. And with flu hospitalizations, the highest since 2010, experts worry that Subclade K could lead to more cases and even deaths. It is not necessarily showing any signs of being more severe. Cameron Wolfe, a professor of medicine and infectious disease at Duke University, who we have already heard from, so there's already a little group of players involved in providing the narrative for this Subclade K story, and he thinks it does look good, as it has sort of escaped some of our prior immunity, and therefore we'd expect more cases, and maybe that's why we're seeing more of them early, is a quote we have already heard of. There's a picture of a man in a mask looking at his phone at a train station, maybe foreshadowing things to return. But according to the concern is that vaccinations are down this year, and while public distrust for vaccination has grown, especially under the Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., experts still highly recommend them. Is there any more to come? Yes, there is. We don't claim that the vaccine to be perfect, said William Schaffner, a doctor who we've already heard of, and we know his credentials at Vanderbilt University. As I said, there are a group of players already providing the narratives for this developing story regarding Subclade K, and we do know from history, and maybe you in the chat watching the live premiere can pipe up in the comments with the answer, but who was it that said a lie repeated often enough and loud enough would be accepted as the truth? It doesn't work, it's not perfect, but it works better than not having one, he went on to say. The most recent flu vaccine may not be perfect match against Subclade clay, doctors and the CDC say, but it's still worth getting. Left untreated, Subclade K can lead to serious complications like ear and sinus infections, bronchitis, pneumonia, and even death. Those who may be the most vulnerable to the strain include adults over 65 and children under the age of 5, pregnant women, and those with underlying chronic conditions. conditions such as diabetes, heart or lung disease. If you contract Subclade K or other wintertime illnesses, you should stay home to prevent the spread of others. And the reason I included this one article, although we've heard pretty much everything they've said before in previous articles, this is the first one that is telling you to stay home, and is that the seed that is being planted that may develop and bloom into another all-out lockdown. But a doctor may prescribe an antiviral medication to reduce symptoms and shorten the duration of the flu. And that finally is it. So my apologies for prematurely thinking this article had ended a couple of times, but that was from yesterday, and we are going now to look at one more video before we read one more article from just a few hours ago.
Now to our deep dive into a new flu strain that health experts warn could make for a nasty flu season. The new strain is called Subclade K, and it's already spread overseas. Japan, they've already declared an influenza epidemic, and the UK flu season started a month earlier than usual. ABC News medical contributor Dr. Alok Patel joins us now with what we need to know about this. Dr. Patel, thank you for joining us again. How is this strain different from other flu strains, and why are health experts worried about it?
Important questions, Ike. So basically, when you think about what a subclade actually is, that word literally means below branch, and it's in the family tree of influenza viruses. So when people hear these letters and these numbers like H3N2, that is influenza A. When there's mutations on those surface proteins, the proteins on the outside of the virus, that's when we get to subclade. So subclade K has mutations on those proteins. People are paying attention because we're seeing cases earlier, and we're seeing more cases in places, as you mentioned, across the world, with Subclade K now being identified in Japan, Canada, and the UK. It's still unclear about what this might actually do to the US, but this is definitely why the global surveillance influenza system, yes, that exists, is on high alert.
Now, are there current flu vaccines effective against this new strain?
So the flu vaccine was actually created in a different subclade later in spring, and researchers are concerned that there may have been some mutations on the proteins that could make this flu vaccine less effective. However, early data does suggest there is some effectiveness, and an important thing that I want everyone to understand is the flu vaccine isn't perfect. No vaccine is. The percentage of effectiveness varies from season to season, but there is some good preliminary data out of the UK, and researchers believe that this flu vaccine this season has still a probability of protecting you and keeping you away from winding up in the hospital or getting severe disease. So it's still a really good idea to get that shot if you haven't already.
All right, now along with that flu shot, what else can people do to protect themselves?
You know, yeah, mention again the flu shot, but also big surprise, please stay home if you are sick. You don't necessarily know what those symptoms really are. This is especially important if you're high risk, if you're going to see someone who's high risk, because anyone who might just have a common cold might not think it's a big deal, but it could be devastating in somebody else.
All right, Dr. Alok Patel, thank you for that information.
So this article from ABC30.com is from today, November 26, 2025, at time of recording, only a few hours ago. And Subclade K, new flu variant with more severe symptoms, leading to more hospitalizations. The holidays and flu seasons are upon us, and medical professionals are warning people of a new version of the virus. Central Valley, California. The holidays and flu seasons are upon us, and the medical professionals are warning people of a new version of the virus. And the new version of the virus goes by the name of Subclade K, as we all know, and we know it is a variant of the common flu strain that we typically are seeing this year. It is known to be a little more aggressive and a little bit more infectious, but has the same effects and same symptoms as your regular flu strain, says Dr. Emmanuel McCauley, who is a new player to the stage, who is a medical director of inpatient pediatrics at Cowell Health, Cowell, whatever that is. Symptoms include fever, aches, and and muscle pains. You can also runny nose, cough, sore throat, and headaches. We have already shown an increase in hospitalizations, particularly in populations such as children under the age of 5 and the elderly, who do seem to be hospitalized at a higher rates, and even compared to last year, which was a very, very severe year, explains Dr. McCulley. While it's just taken hold here, this new flu variant has already run rampant overseas, as we already know, in countries like the United Kingdom, Canada, and Japan. It has already been declared an epidemic, and here it is in the US, and we still don't know how it is going to be presented. It may cause some similar issues here in our country, the United States, but yes, this new subclade variant may be associated with more higher transmissions, with higher problems, with higher symptoms, explains Dr. Saul Diaz-Martinez, who is another new player to the stage, and he is also a pediatric person at Adventist Health Hospital, Fowler. Doctors say the current flu shot does offer some protection, as we've heard before, yada yada, whoop-de-woo, ray-tay-tay, and the key is prevention, such as washing your hands and staying away from others if you feel sick. And I'm sure some of you will be familiar with that, as we heard about washing your hands and social distances during the days of COVID. So are we about to experience another pandemic, or will hopefully enough people go out and get themselves vaccinated, and although the current vaccine won't actually prevent it, it won't actually make you feel as bad as if you don't get it. But back to the article, it is especially important to keep an eye on vulnerable populations, especially children under 5 who are at higher risk of dehydration, and the doctor always encourages her patients or his patients to trust their parental instincts. If your child is not doing well, then bring them in and get them checked out, urges Dr. McCulley. Also, if over-the-counter medications aren't working, it is important to know when to seek medical help. Debilitating symptoms, difficulty feeding, refusing liquids, or decreased urinary output. It may be that there is something more serious going on, such as pneumonia or other complications for influenza, and they need to be seen right away, mentions Dr. Diaz-Martinez, piping in there with some more pediatric medical advice. Doctors remind us that the flu is a serious virus that can have permanent consequences. This can be life-threatening. It can get very severe. Last year's flu season was one of the highest incidents of hospitalizations, particularly for children, and this year we are already seeing rates of hospitalizations that are even higher than last year, says Dr. McCulley. Doctors say respiratory symptoms, including cough and difficulty breathing, are also reasons one should seek medical attention. Again, they remind people that prevention is key, which included frequent hand washing. And for South Valley News updates, follow Cassandra Gutierrez on Facebook, X, and Instagram. So that is about it, folks, for the articles. There is one last video before I wrap things up with my final thoughts, but as you can see from these articles, they are all pretty much reading and writing from the same script, and with the exception of this article, which come out this morning at time of recording, we've seen pretty much the same individuals being referenced and providing narrative to this developing story. So how much more it will develop, who knows, but this has sort of ramped up in the last sort of couple of weeks, and certainly within the last 2 or 3 days there has been an even bigger rise of articles, pretty much all of them reading from the same script. So I might just go over and give you a little look at Google just to show you some of the articles that are circulating before that last video, and getting around to wrap things up. So as promised, here we are at the Google search site, where you can see all I have typed in to the search bar is Subclade K, and here at the all section we can see some of the top stories. How to protect your kids amid new Subclade K flu strain from 2 days ago. What is Subclade K, the fast-spreading flu type drawing concern, from 2 days ago. 19 hours ago from ABC 30 Fresno, we just saw that article. Subclade K, a new flu variant with more severe symptoms leading to more hospitalizations. There's that one from the New York Post we've already seen. Another one from a day ago, new severe flu variant spreading in the United States. Watch for these symptoms from today.com. There's that article from IFL Science we've read. Heard about Subclade K flu. We explore what it is and whether you need to worry, from 2 days ago. Threat assessment from 6 days ago. Let me just quickly click on that one. Threat assessment brief, assessing the risk of influenza on the EU and EEA in the context of increasing circulation of H3N2 subclade clay. And it's very, very, very long and small, so we're not going to read it, but that was from one from just about 6 days, a week ago, assessing the risk of influenza and this new strain, Subclade clay. So just moving down here, what is a subclade? What is the new strain of flu called? What is H3N2 called? What are the symptoms of the new flu? And you can see here some of these articles that we have read, some that we haven't read. A lot of them are from within the last 2 days to the last week. Here's another one from 2 days ago. Just go down a little bit further. How to protect your kids, why Subclade K could make for a nasty flu season, a new flu virus variant lagging vaccinations from CNN November the 18th, a couple of weeks ago. Emergence of seasonal influenza. Forbes, a new more severe variant is spreading. That's from 7 days ago. Government UK flu vaccine providing important protection. And that again is pretty much saying what we have already heard in many of these other articles that we've included within this presentation. So we're not going to go down much further. You can see there that a lot of these articles are from within the last 7 days. And we will click over just to let you see what's going on with the news section. You can see most of them are purple because we have clicked on them, or I have clicked on them. Some of we have seen some of them. I decided not to include because they just are pretty much almost, not exactly word from word, but pretty much the exact same script, almost plagiarized over and over again. But here you can see the sort of results that you're getting from the news on there, and all of them mostly are from within the last week, but there are 3 there in the center that are from 2 weeks ago, one of them which is from the United Kingdom government. Flu vaccine providing important protection despite new subclade, and that was from the 11th of November 2005. What I will do just before we go and watch this one last video and wrap things up is see what AI has to say on the matter of Subclade K. The term Subclade K primarily refers to a new mutated strain of influenza A H3N2 virus that is currently circulating and causing concern among global health officials. In genetics, the term also generally denotes a subgroup of a haplogroup used in ancestry analysis. Subclade K influenza. Health experts are closely monitoring the H3N2 Subclade K variant due to its potential to cause a more severe flu season. So are we in for a more severe flu season, or do you think hopefully, fingers crossed, we will be able to prevent it from being severe if enough people take the advice of the medical experts and go and get themselves vaccinating, even though it may not work as well as they hoped. It will work better than nothing is the sort of general consensus we're getting from these articles. But the nature of the virus, Subclade K, is an offshoot of the H3N2 virus that has accumulated several new mutations, making it genetically distinct from the strain included in this season's current flu vaccine. It first emerged in the southern hemisphere's late flu season and has become dominant in the UK and Japan, as we already know, leading to an early flu season, surges and concerns about its rapid spread in North America and Europe. The symptoms are typical of the flu, including sudden onset of fever, chills, body aches, headaches, fatigue, and cough. H3N2 viruses historically lead to more severe illnesses, particularly in older adults. Vaccine effectiveness, according to AI, current seasonal flu vaccines may not be a perfect match for Subclade K, but due to the mutations. However, the early data from the UK indicates that the vaccine still provides significant protection against severe illnesses, hospitalizations, and even death, particularly in children. Health officials universally recommended, and there is a pattern that the elderly and the young are going to be the most susceptible and vulnerable to this latest strain, Subclade K. But health officials universally recommend getting vaccinated as the best defense against serious outcomes. Prevention is better than cure, as the saying goes. Risk assessment: the risk for the general population is assessed as moderate but high for vulnerable individuals, including the elderly, very young children, and those with underlying health conditions. For further guidance, individuals are encouraged to consult health officials, resources such as the CDC in the US or the ECDC in Europe. In a context of genetic genealogy, a subclade is a more specific recent branch with a larger haplogroup in mitochondrial DNA. Haplogroup K is common in Europe and the Near East, and specific subclades are studied to trace maternal ancestry and migration patterns. So that is it from AI, and that is it from Google. Let's hand you over to that video, and I will see you back in my virtual basement to wrap things up.
A surprising flu mutation has the U.S. on high alert. As flu season looms in the United States, an unexpected influenza strain is poised to make the coming months particularly challenging. Canada, the United Kingdom, and Japan have all recently reported an increase in flu cases, with early data suggesting that Subclade K, a variant of influenza A, H3N2, is driving the spread, according to the Global Center for Health Security. This could spell trouble for the U.S. if Subclade K makes its way here. But here's where it gets controversial. While the situation is concerning, experts urge the public not to panic. Trouble abroad may signal trouble ahead for the U.S. A study published this month in the BMJ predicts that the 2025 to 2026 flu season in the United Kingdom, which got off to an early start, could be one of the worst ever. The dominant H3N2 influenza strain mutated 7 times over the summer, making it more severe than normal, according to the report. In Japan, health officials have declared the flu an epidemic as an uncommonly high number of cases have been reported for this time of year. Because influenza viruses don't need a passport, I think it's only a matter of time before this strain shows up in the United States, says William Schaffner, MD, an infectious disease specialist and a professor of preventive medicine and health policy at the Vanderbilt University School of Medicine in Nashville, Tennessee. It may even be here now, but because of the government's recent shutdown, we haven't heard much information about flu now for weeks from the CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Even though these signs point to a potentially bad flu season, Dr. Schaffner urges the public not to panic. We'll have to see how this all plays out. It's a little bit too early to tell, he says. Flu is fickle. It almost always defies predictions in one way or another. As the CDC gets back up to speed in the days ahead, more data regarding flu trends in the United States should become available, according to Schaffner. Initial post-government shutdown information has shown low influenza activity in the United States, but it has begun to inch back up. A mismatched vaccine may leave Americans more vulnerable. Recently, Canadian researchers published a paper warning that this year's flu vaccine formula is a mismatch for what appears to be the leading strain, Subclade K. Because this year's shot was not designed to mainly target Subclade K, the variant may better elude vaccine protection, driving infection rates up. Flu vaccine formulas for the Northern Hemisphere are updated each year based on variants that circulated during the flu season that just passed in the Southern Hemisphere. This season's shot includes components to protect against influenza A, H1N1, and influenza A, H3N2, as well as a type of influenza B. Because the H3N2 variant Subclade K took off at the tail end of the Southern Hemisphere flu season, vaccine makers in the Northern Hemisphere did not target it, as reported by the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy Research. Minimal early data from public health laboratories nationwide show that about 63% of influenza A samples tested have been H3N2 and 37% have been H1N1, but the proportion that may be Subclade K is not yet clear. In a statement, Antonia Ho, Ph.D., a clinical senior lecturer and consultant in infectious diseases at the University of Glasgow, warned that of the two seasonal influenza A viruses, the current dominant circulating virus, A/H3N2, tends to cause more severe illness than A/H1N1, particularly in older adults. Vaccination still provides significant protection. Even though this year's flu vaccine may be somewhat of a mismatch for Subclade K, infectious disease experts expect it to substantially heighten defenses against infection and especially help prevent severe illness, hospitalizations, and deaths. There are different strains of influenza every year, so unfortunately we don't have a universal vaccine that you take only once, says Aaron Glatt, MD, the chief of infectious diseases at Mount Sinai South NASA Hospital in Oceanside, New York, and a spokesperson for the Infectious Diseases Society of America. The current vaccine is based on what went on in the Southern Hemisphere in their winter to guess what will be going on here in the Northern Hemisphere, so it's not a perfect game. There are always matches and mismatches, he says, but those who are vaccinated should be more protected against this particular strain, Subclade K. And even if they do get the flu, they are far more likely to have a milder episode than if they didn't get the vaccine. Preliminary research in the United Kingdom bears this out, indicating that vaccine effectiveness against hospitalization at this point early in the season is within a typical range of 70 to 75% in children and 30 to 40% in adults. The CDC recommends annual flu vaccination for everyone ages 6 months and older, and stresses that vaccination is especially important for groups who are more vulnerable to severe illness, including older adults, pregnant individuals, people with chronic medical conditions, those with weakened immune systems, and young children. Nearly 9 out of 10 children who died from the flu in the 2024-25 season were not fully vaccinated. Even people with strong immune systems can benefit from the vaccine. This virus can make even very healthy people very sick, says Schaffner. We emphasize that all people get vaccinated, not just the most vulnerable but also their caregivers and their family members. Nobody wants to be a dreaded spreader. With peak flu season arriving in January or February, it's not too late to get your shot, but Schaffner urges people not to delay it. The immune system takes about 10 days to 2 weeks to fully activate its protection against the virus.
Right folks, that about wraps it up for today's video, and it was a shorter than normal video that you may find on my channel, but I did just want to highlight a few things of interest regarding this new Subclade K variant flu strain that may or may not develop into a widespread global pandemic that will see similarities of 2020 returning to society. Make of it what you will, folks. You know, be advised that, you know, psychological operations do tend to, you know, happen from time to time in some of these biological operations do tend to affect us all, and they are targeted at us all. Since the sort of pandemic, we have been introduced to new unifying global threats rather than sort of isolated, domesticated incidents that may only sort of affect the sort of people within the close proximity of such events. I'm not here to say that we're about to see another PSYOP, another staged event. We could very well have a actual flu variant coming our way. It is, after all, flu season, and you know, similarly to when COVID news broke, it did break during the flu season, and if or not they just rebranded influenza to COVID-19 and ordered the figures to provide statistics that were a little bit scary and worrying for folks about rising death tolls. If or not that is going to be repeated, time will only tell. But I wanted to, as I said, draw attention to this developing story, provide you with a little bit of information for your own personal awareness, and as always, you know, make of it what you will. So that is it, folks. For now, I am going to tell you to take care of yourself. May the force be with us all, and more importantly, let's just be excellent to each other. So that is ArDee signing out for now.
Ubu, sit. Good dog.
excellent to each other. Party on, dudes!
Hey, Luke. May the force be with you.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.